So I want to call the Town Council Budget Workshop to order for March 5th, 2020. First up on our agenda for 6:30 is the, well, it says Town Council. So Sharon, I know you had some questions.
Can we do the nonprofits first because they're here? Or
It doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter to me.
okay,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
while they're waiting.
Yeah. All right, so,
We'll do it again.
yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, first up is Wood River Health. We have David and the director here. Hello. I see that we give you 10,000. Looks like that's what you requested for 2020, 2021. Do you have anything to add, I guess, for the council? I know you probably always do something over there.
Yes, sure. And because the camera's on and people will at home, those that watch the video, can learn things about your river. So tell us about your services.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Town Council. My name is Allison Croak. I'm the President and CEO of Wood River Health Services. I want to thank you for your contribution to our annual budget last year of $10,000. We are seeking level funding again this year. I won't repeat what we put in our letter, but we did indicate that we saw 1,755 Hopkinton residents in the last calendar year. So Wood River Health Services is a federally qualified health center. We now have 2 locations. We're in Hope Valley and in Westerly. Our Westerly site is new still. We opened in July of 2019. That changed our organization pretty significantly. We are accepting new patients, and we have been seeing an increase in the number of patients, both to Hope Valley and to the Westerly site. We provide primary care services as well as integrated behavioral health and dental services. We don't have dental services in Westerly. That's the only difference between the Hope Valley and the Westerly site. Although we are committed to opening up a dental clinic in Westerly in the next, say, 3 to 5 years. So our board is looking in our current strategic plan, which we just redid, they are committed to opening up a dental clinic in Westerly. It is an area of unmet need. When you look at statewide, the utilization of dental services for kids in particular, the statewide utilization of dental services is about 55% of kids access preventive dental services, but in Westerly it's only 38%, so it's below the statewide average. So we know that if we were to open a dental facility in Westerly, we'd be very successful. So it was a major change in calendar year 2019, was the opening of our second location. We've been recruiting for and hiring some new staff. We do, as is life, people retire, people move on, so we have had some turnover. We are hiring, we're seeking an additional nurse practitioner, and we did hire another new nurse practitioner that just started with us recently. So we have some growth in clinical staff as well as in some administrative areas as well. I was mentioning before the meeting started that we are building a new dental operatory in the Hope Valley facility. So we project that this new dental operatory will be able to provide an additional 1,000 dental visits a year. Both for kids and adults, so we again know that that's a significant need in our area. Yes.
What does operatory mean?
It's a dental exam room, basically.
Oh, it's an exam.
Yes. It's just
You don't have one now?
we have 5. So we're adding a 6th.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Very popular program. Well,
Oh,
it's
very
needed. It's needed.
Yeah.
They're going to use this, you got space in the building currently.
We do. We have sort of a current, it's like an alcove in the building. So we're not necessarily adding on to the existing square footage. It's sort of like this gap between, it's a little hard to explain. But I know you've been to the building, so next time you come for a tour, I'll point that out. So we'll have some construction starting very soon. We did hire a new dentist that started in January. So our wait list for dental services has decreased. Because we had a dentist leave in June and we weren't able to hire a new dentist until January. There was a gap there, and our wait list was a little bit longer than it had been previously. So with the new operatory, a new dental exam room, new dentist, we'll be able to increase access for patients, which has been an area of focus for the last several months. We had an article recently in the Westerly Sun about some consultants that we brought in that have worked with hundreds of health centers across the country to really help us look at how we do our work day to day, what our workflows look like, what are some operational efficiencies we can add to the health center, so that, again, we can increase access to care for the community. And we've been looking at our data recently, and what it's indicating that the changes that we've made have increased access. We have same-day access appointments available every day for people that call. They fill up fast, but we haven't had to turn, in the last couple of weeks, we haven't have had to turn anyone away that's wanted to come in. And our wait list for medical services has also decreased by about half. So, so those improvements are really bearing fruit.
That consulting firm is specialized in healthcare facilities?
Yes, they're a group called Coleman and Associates, and they work with federally qualified health centers, almost entirely with community health centers.
Yes.
Yes, not towns, no, you're almost,
Yes.
I know where she's going, that's right. Obviously, we've been focused in the last couple of weeks on our emergency preparedness in response to the coronavirus and the COVID-19 cases that have been posited in the state. You know, it's important to us to not to be prepared, but to not overreact. So we are keeping in close contact on a daily basis with Rhode Island Department of Health and have established some protocols that our staff will follow if a patient were to arrive at the health center that has traveled to the impacted areas. We have a set of protocols that we would follow.
So are you saying when they sign in, you're asking them those certain questions?
We are. We've introduced 2 additional new screening questions, again, under the guidance of the Department of Health. That's what they advised us to do, to ask any visitor to the health center, whether they be a patient, visitor, you know, someone coming for a meeting with me, we're asking everybody these questions. And then we have a series of steps that we follow if the answer is yes.
And are the intake people wearing gloves?
No, that's not what the Department of Health recommends at this point.
Okay.
If someone answers yes to the screening
Yeah, but
questions,
they're touching a piece of paper that somebody's giving them. That's where I was going.
only if someone has answered positive to the screening questions, then we have established protocols that we have to follow, and that will include wearing protective equipment, masks, gloves, things
If
like
they
that.
came back from Italy or Iran or
And they have
Wuhan,
symptoms.
China.
Yes, that's right. There's 5 areas right now that could change, and we're monitoring the CDC on a daily basis to see if that changes. But we're coordinating so that we're consistent with all the other health centers. The hospital, as you know, is on site at Wood River in Hill Valley, offering lab radiology, so we've been coordinating with them, and they are the closest hospital if we did have to send someone there for a test. We don't have test kits on site at none of the health centers. So it's been a busy couple of weeks.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the request form,
Yes.
it looks like your total number of clients are going down pretty regularly from the prior year
That's right.
to this one,
That's right.
from 6938 to 6840 to 6717,
That's right.
and then it's continued from 1807 down to 1755. Now, is that because on the prior year you opened in Westerly, so some of the people from Westerly may have been coming, or can you explain why that would be?
So that's a great question. We've been paying close attention to that number. So that 6,717 number is calendar year 18. Calendar year 19, we have the exact same number. So we're starting to see the trend go, at least now, flat, and hopefully go back in the opposite direction. So that was a number that the leadership team has been very focused on and trying to figure out why has that number decreased. Some of it is natural attrition of the population. Our patients are not pediatric. Only 20% of our patients are under the age of 18. And births year over year in the state have declined, as well as in our area, right? So there's not a lot of growth on that end of the lifespan. And then the other end of the lifespan, life happens. People pass on. But in addition, we did have some some gaps in provider capacity. When a provider leaves, there's workforce issues around primary care. It's not that medical schools aren't full and graduating classes every year, they are. People aren't necessarily going into primary care. They're subspecializing. So it's been a challenge for us to recruit physicians. So our business model, like most health centers, has started to shift away from being predominantly physician-driven and more focused on nurse practitioners and family nurse practitioners.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so the 6717 was 2018,
Calendar.
and then 2019 is about the same. And we'll
We have
see
one
how-
less, so we call that flat.
6760. So, but you'll be seeing how that progresses into the next year,
That's right.
especially with the additional dental facilities. And I know you
Exactly.
did open in Westerly, so I would assume
That's
some
right.
people may have moved to Westerly or gone over to there.
That's right, because about a third of our existing patients live in Westerly, so we did see some natural movement from the Hope Valley facility to Westerly, and then new patients at both locations.
So aren't you including the Westerly patients in your total numbers?
Yes, we are,
Okay.
we are.
Mhm.
And this is the number, so there's a million different ways to look at this number. The way we report this number to the federal government is a patient that came in for a visit in that calendar year. We have more patients that, I don't know how everybody else is, but some people don't always go to the doctor on a regular basis. That doesn't mean that we don't consider them our patient. They might not have just come in last year for a visit because they felt good or they didn't want to get their annual exam, whatever, for whatever reason. But this is the number of people that actually came through the door.
And those are specific individuals.
That's
not-
individuals. This
not double
represents
count.
about 17,000 medical visits on an annual basis.
Good, I think that's wonderful, I think you do great work, and I really am pleased that you've added the dental, and you're going to be adding another room, so that's great.
Yes, we're excited.
Maybe we'll get more children. You might get more
Maybe.
pediatrics. I've
Too
got
expensive.
There's 3 being born in my neighborhood as we speak.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I heard you say that 1/3 of the clients are Westerly. So they're driving from Westerly to go to you.
That's
That is amazing.
Now they can go to the
Westerly.
Westerly
Of
location.
course, yeah.
Yes,
That's
that's right.
interesting. I didn't realize it was that many folks. Is there still a federal program for, because it's classified, we don't use the word clinic anymore, but because it originally started as Woodbridge Health, of course, and there used to be a federal program where doctors would come in, and it's an underserved area through, and
The health
they
professional
get
shortage.
they get a benefit, help,
Yes, yes.
Is
The
that
federal
still
loan
ongoing?
repayment program? That's also a great question. So yes, it is. There is a federal loan repayment program. And recently, all of the health centers nationally were rescored. And you're scored on a scale of 0 to 21. It's better to be a higher number, because if you're a higher number, that means you are more of a shortage area and you
Right.
can access the federal loan repayment money. Now, for dental and for mental health, our clinic score is very high, 2021. So our mental health clinicians and our dental clinicians can access and apply for the federal loan repayment. Unfortunately, on the medical side, our score was not competitive. It was lower than prior years. 15 was our score. So our medical staff can't access the federal loan repayment program, but there is some state funds available, again, limited, very competitive. But we do support applications for our staff to apply for the state loan repayment.
That also means that people are healthier, and that's a good thing.
Yes, and then they have access to, there's other providers in the area that they can access. That's why the score kind of went.
I would like you to have fewer rather than more.
It just makes it a little bit harder to recruit physicians. Again, there's less physicians going into primary care, but they're
Right.
still coming out with $400,000 worth of debt.
Right.
And compared to going to work at maybe a larger system, I don't know, say Yale New Haven, we can't compete on a salary basis. So we lose that competition. Where we can compete, where we have been successful in the past, is quality of life, for sure, as well as people that are mission-focused and mission-driven, as well as access to that federal loan repayment. So it does hurt us in a way. I see your point, and I don't disagree, but from a recruiting and retention standpoint, it does make things a little bit harder.
How does it, I thought, I guess I'm wrong, but I thought it was a forgiveness over time of the loan. How does that work?
For the federal loan program?
Yeah, do they forgive some debt over the years as long as you stay, or is it just a
It's-
low interest?
It's, well, there's several different programs, but this program that is accessible to the folks that work at federally qualified health centers is a loan repayment program. So they come out with loans. It's not exactly the public health service, which is, I think, a little bit different. I'm not as familiar with all the details, but I can certainly follow
No, I
up.
just wondered if that was still helping in your recruitment of medical personnel.
Because those loan repayment dollars at the federal level aren't available to us, we can't offer that. We try from our own budget,
Right.
from our own monies
Right.
to help, however, because we need to, we
You
can't
need-
recruit if we don't offer that. So we
Is it
try to offer
still,
that.
the area is still classified as an underserved area? Or I know that's for home health, so it's probably not you.
It is for dental, for oral health, and for mental health.
Okay.
We didn't meet that threshold for primary care.
So it wouldn't help with, yeah, and I guess that was just for doctors. It's not for nursing.
That's
It's
right.
just doctors,
That's right.
yeah.
And their own
Okay.
physicians.
Allison,
for PAs?
Allison, I just have a question.
PAs and nurse practitioners can, again, if we were competitive with SCORE, they can apply. RNs can also, and then the state funds, we support applications as well to the state.
I know when you were starting to look at that Westerly location, you had a concern about the setup and acquisition of that space and how it might be kind of expensive. I guess, now that you're in there, has it kind of settled down, I guess, or is it leveled off? Or I know that was initially a concern. I don't know how that's going. Just a rough question on it.
So it certainly was an invest, so we don't own
Yeah, right.
the facility in Westerly, we rent. And with the assumption that if we're able to get to more of a break-even scenario, that we would look to have a permanent location in Westerly. So we're not quite there yet, but it's only been just a little over 6 months. So
It's
because we opened in July.
Oh, okay.
And so we wouldn't expect to see
Yeah.
progress there until maybe we were 18 months or so.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit more time to,
Yep, it's good. Well, I wish everything works. Hope everything works out.
yes, we do as well. We do as well.
All right, anything else for Allison?
No, thank you.
All right, so, yeah, we're good with the same amount, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Allison, David.
I wish we had money
Yeah.
to hand out.
All right, Ashley Free Library in Langwood. It doesn't matter, they're both the same. They work as a group.
They usually work in pairs.
Yeah.
We're a team. Yeah, there you go. We're a team,
Uh,
collab.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll start. Okay. Good evening, council and committee members. Do you have a, yeah, I have a little voice. My name is Nomi Hay. I'm the new director at Langley. I started in July, and it's been a wonderful experience. It's a great community. It's a great staff. It's been wonderful collaborating with Heather, and we've had several meetings where we talk about ways we can work together to better serve the residents of Hopkinton. We are asking for a little bit more money this year. We're asking for 69 instead of the 66 that we were getting for a few years.
You know what happened, why that happened? Our budget, municipal budget was declining.
It failed.
It failed.
The voters, yeah.
So when that happens, we have to go to the prior year. So your prior year allocation was 66, that's why you got what you got.
Yeah,
So-
no, we're thankful for.
No, right, so I just want you to know
Yes.
why it happened that way, and what's going on, so.
Yeah,
No,
thank you
if-
for
if-
clarifying.
Again, it's up to the council, obviously, as a group, but, we need, you're as vested as we are in getting this municipal budget approved, because if it doesn't get approved, it's gonna stay, will it stay back to, it'll revert to what we initially approved. So if you want more money, you've gotta get the word out to residents in this town to support the municipal budget. Now, whether they support the school budget, that's another matter. In my opinion, I won't say.
We know that.
Yeah, that's it.
No,
But the municipal is very important. I can't stress it enough. Now, I'm not putting the onus on you folks, but you just gotta get the word out because it's that important that our budget, we've got 2 years of operating expenses that are in this particular budget, and if it doesn't get approved, we're gonna really be in a fix because it's gonna be 3 years next year. And it's really important for us to get that approved. So anything you can do in terms of getting the word out to support the library and the town, we'd love to have you do that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, we will be happy to do that.
You know,
Yeah,
so-
I mean,
And it's just simply so that, and you can do it just, for yourself, just with like the municipal budget to pass because we get more
I'm
money.
just saying, but I
So, you know, you don't have to try to be too big, you can be very specific to yourself.
I'm
if you
sure
want.
it's coded in there.
Are we going to, I'd like to address raising their budget from 66 to 68. We had wanted to do that last year and could not. It has been several years in a row at 66, and I understand why. But I would like to raise them to 68,000. If it passes, all well and good, and if it doesn't,
It goes back to
it goes back to
66.
66. But I
Any
do think
thoughts?
it's valuable. It's been
I
several
agree.
years.
I'm opposed to it. I think what has to really be directed, and I was a trustee of the library in Ashway, I was in my 20s, many years ago. The fact of the matter is that people have to seriously realize we have to defeat the school budget. Specifically because we have a budget cap, the state of Rhode Island imposes. In order to go over that cap, you get permission, and I think we're slightly under the cap. And they have a maintenance of effort law. The libraries have a maintenance of effort. They have to give the libraries the same amount as the previous year. The school department, minus non-recurring expenses, has a maintenance of effort. So once the school budget passes, minus those considerations, you have to give the school department the same as the previous year. And that's the dilemma. And I'll say to anybody, I'll say to all the nonprofits, say to everybody in Hopkinton, if you're really serious about town services, whether it's nonprofits, town government, the school budget has to be defeated because it's built in for future years. That's how serious it is. And right now, I favor
But that's
retaining.
not what we were talking
No,
I
excuse
understand.
me.
Hold on, Scott's, he's got a point.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know
No.
where he's going, so.
Go ahead.
But the fact of the matter is, the political reality is, the legal reality is, that the way it operates is that the school budget, for all practical purposes, must be defeated. Because the dilemma that the town government has impacts everybody, nonprofits, as you just heard with, that if the budget gets, school budget doesn't fail, and the people of Hopkinton cannot reduce taxes like they think, they go after the town budget, which impacts the libraries, the ambulance corps, everybody. Because that's what the legal reality is, because the school department has 2 or 3 tries at getting their budget approved. The town of Hopkinton only has 1 shot at getting their budget approved. So I tell anybody that if you're concerned about the future of this town, the nonprofits, town government, taxpayers, it's crucial that Cheryl Host's budget be defeated. And its implication, its relevancy is that has a trickle-down impact on town government, nonprofits, and everybody else as far as town funding goes. And a very serious thing, and I'm disappointed my other council colleagues don't fully appreciate that. I've lived in this town 66 years, and I think I know the history a little better than most. Thank you. So I believe in equal what you got presently.
Thank you.
Well, I think that in today's world, a lot of people are using the library for a variety of reasons. I'm a member of their book club, the Landworthy Book Club. And I see people using it if they don't have a computer at home. There are a lot of homeless people that come to the library to use it because they don't have their own computer. So I think that it's increasing in need, and I would go along with library.
I also think that one of the things they use the library for, and I'm always impressed because I'm at the Ashway Library, and I do help them organize their books for the book sale, which I have a great time because it gives me first shot to see if I wanted to buy anything or anything, read it and put it back. But one of the things they have is that the libraries are also used, especially during the day, with homeschool children and a lot of special needs children, which I am always amazed how calm and pleasant and welcoming this is to children who get to wander when they're special needs. And the librarians look out for them, not just the parent or the teacher with them, and they do wonderful work with that. I agree with Sharon that the elderly, people who are homeless, people without computers, people who need it for resumes, use it all the time. And they have been very patient. It is not their fault that the municipal budget failed, and if it fails, they'll go back to 66. And it is not their fault whether the school budget is going up or not. But they are valuable and vital to our town, and I would like to see them have the 68,000, and we hopefully will get revenue next year, because most of the solar will come online, and we'll get taxes, and we'll get the revenue from it, not just the fees. So if we do, and if the budget passes, then I would very much like to know that you have an extra $2,000. I just don't think that's actually enough for you, and I do wish the state would give you more. I think that's where the failure is in the libraries, is the state needs to subsidize the libraries at a higher rate.
And the bottom line is, if we take Article 12, Section 1 of the Rhode Island State Constitution, specifically states the General Assembly should promote public libraries in schools, in education. Just look it up. The state has shortchanged our schools and funding, they shortchanged our public libraries, and it's our state legislators that should be working on that, and the powers to be in Providence. Thank you. Just don't take my word for it, read the state constitution.
I've got a question for you. On your number, just to make sure, your number of Hopkinton clients served is 652. That's single, not double counted, right?
Yes, that's.
Right, so think about that. 652 people are using your library. We're not talking about a small number of people. That's
And
that's just your library.
Right, and that's just,
That's
those are
actually-
actually
Yeah, that's
only
actually.
our registered borrowers as well. It's a very difficult number for us to track because there's a lot of fluidity among the libraries because of the library consortium, the statewide consortium. So a lot of people who have a Langworthy card also use Ashaway and vice versa. So it's really kind of almost a combined number. And additionally, people don't have to have a library card to use our services. They can come use the copier, they can come use our computers, our Wi-Fi. They can watch Netflix in their car at 10 o'clock at night if they want to in the parking lot because we offer that service 24 hours a day. They can bring their kids to store hour. They can do any of those things without actually having a library card. So I would suggest, obviously I can't validate this with numbers because we would have to poll everyone that came in the door, but
Yeah.
I would suggest that the actual number of town users is higher than that.
Right, because the number combined is, that you have in the papers is 1763, which is 25%, and I'm sure you serve more than those. I can guarantee it.
Following up with what Scott was talking about, the budget in general, the school and town budget, and we mentioned this before, and we'll say it again, that the increase that Hopkinton's looking at the moment for the total budget is 4.5% tax increase. And Charahoe that was around 7%, and they did take some action and got it down to 4.5%. But that 4.5% that's left is entirely school.
Well, it's actually split, because we have 2 years of operating expenses, so.
Oh, so it's not entirely the
No.
school, so about 2.5 or
300,000 up.
300 versus, they're at 901,
there.
901,000, and we're at about 300,000.
Okay, so 300, okay, all right, well, thank you for
Because our
clarifying that.
budget failed, so we have 2 years of operating, 2 years of raises.
Yeah.
And Tuesday, the school budget will be taken a look at again, and I'm hoping that they drop that 400,000 of the fund balance, because that would give us at least under our 4%.
So, just to finish up, and I know you want to talk about your libraries more probably, or your libraries, but, you know, a lot of people, and there's an article in the paper that comes out, and will Hopkinton's enrollment increase? So people, a lot of folks say, well, you know, it's going up because of enrollment. The issue and the problem that we have is simply we have 3 different school tax rates. Charlestown is very, very low, and Richmond and Hopkinton have, I don't know, 3 times the amount, 2 times the amount. You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's the problem. Whether enrollment, if we had one single school tax rate for the district, like other towns, you know, do, but if we had that, everything would be different. Everything would be different. So that's why these little enrollment shifts, and like you pointed out, Cheryl only had 2 more students overall for the district. But our town increased by 24, so we're gonna take the biggest hit. But anyway, so just for the folks at home, it's the issue of 3 different tax rates. It's not the enrollment shifts. If we had one single tax rate, we'd all be paying similar amounts. So anyway, that's my spiel. But I do support increasing it to 68, just like we tried to do before and the budget failed. So,
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I mean, I think the overall traffic, I just have a different opinion of what may be happening in libraries. I just think they're not used as much, but again, I'm not gonna,
I can speak to that.
Yeah, no, I know. You know, I just have a theory in my own head about how things are gonna go. And just
someday.
in terms of the digital age and all that stuff. So, you know, again, I've always supported you, and I will, but I just have a different theory about.
I have some exciting news I can share.
Well, yeah.
There was a recent Gallup poll conducted in December of 2019, where they were asking people which of various cultural institutions they had visited in the last calendar year. And this was the whole gamut of live concerts, zoos, museums, live theater, movie theaters, everything. Libraries were actually the top, and by a factor of 2. The second choice, it was 10.5 visits per year on average for the survey respondents. The second was movie theaters at only 5 and change. So we're twice as popular as.
Where was that taken? What part of the country?
It was nationwide. So it's not just a nationwide perception either. It's something that I can say I'm observing in my library. We're lively, we're thriving, we're doing well. If you invest in us, you're not throwing your money.
Oh, no,
I would say that I live in the Ashbury Library, the lucky they don't charge me rent, I go there every day. of my
maybe you
life
should,
without
$2,000.
There's a way to do that.
Right there.
We're
Someone
just-
invoice.
Exactly.
Like the library really becoming more of a community space. So it's definitely, at least in Langworthy, we're seeing a lot more people turning out for different events and programs, trying to see what's interesting to people. and
You've
really
got a lot of
feel
people
the
going into
different-
that little bitty space.
Yeah, we really.
Even though you've expanded. Yeah.
Well, they expand.
Well, no, but a while back, didn't you expand in the back of the building? Or
No.
it was just the
They
parking?
rebuilt the entire undercroft.
Oh, we.
That was some years back.
That was a couple of years back.
But
Yeah.
still, small, little space.
It's very small and it has its challenges with
Mm, yeah,
space,
I
but we're making it work and people love coming in there.
Of course
so-
they do.
Yeah.
They're little intimate jewel boxes.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
And they are, they're welcomed and warm, and they wander into their magazines or computers or books, or just the way children wander. They just wander.
Librarians are usually the nicest people.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. Tell your husbands or boyfriends or whatever, you know, you better value me. They don't. They don't.
The reality is, if I can bring it.
Reality,
Yeah,
yeah.
anyway, we're $87,000 over the 4% cap, okay? So I would like to stick with 66, and we'll take a consensus on Barbara's amount, I think.
Well, it's 3 to 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, you are, okay.
yeah.
All right, so, yeah, so again, it looks like your consensus supports your extra couple thousand.
Thank you so much, very much.
And please try and do your best to get the word out on the support of the municipal budget so you can get that $2,000.
Yeah.
Because if it fails, you're going back to my figure of 66.
I just want to mention, we're going to be doing a lot to get the word out about the census in the coming months. And the library is a really an important space for people to come and make their vote,
Okay.
you know, legit and get counted. And that affects the money that goes to the town. So,
Yeah, okay, that sounds
So
great.
make sure they know when the votes are. At least let them know when they are.
we will. We absolutely will.
So is
Lisa,
there
when is
anything
it?
you want to add for the Langworthy? Was anything in particular you wanted to make sure we're aware of?
Oh, yes, Heather and I have received a grant, and we're very excited to bring it to the elementary school age children this summer, the children in Hopkinton.
Where'd you get the grant from?
It's from the Office of Library Information Services,
Oh,
and they
okay.
get their money from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. They're not funding the summer reading program in quite the same way as they used to, so we were concerned about that. So
How much?
$2,300
Each?
combined.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
going to be, we're going to host a series of 11 nature and animal-based summer reading programs for elementary school
Nice.
kids in the libraries. We're going to split them up between the two libraries. And it includes a little bit of money for printing a nice flyer so that people will be able to keep track of like what's going on where and when. So, yeah, we decided to collaborate on that, and there should be a press release going out about it relatively soon. We were one of about 5 or 6 libraries in the state.
Yeah, just 5 or 6 libraries in the state.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty special.
So we're very excited. It should be a great summer.
Very good.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very nice. Was that? Oh, as far as
The vote.
yeah, so, yeah, the town budget's June 9th, I just talked to Lisa, so.
June 9th, okay.
That's the municipal budget vote, so.
Okay.
Charitable's is the 14th of April.
Chair was 14.
6/9, okay? All right, anything else for these ladies? Okay, thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you. Richard, you're up next. Hope Valley Industries. Looks like Clyde will give you a couple thousand more, and then the budget got defeated, so you got the 50, right?
Yes, exactly.
So,
I brought up Alyssa with me because she is my replacement. She's in training right now.
Oh, okay, hello, Alyssa.
So they didn't get you out the door just yet?
No.
And in my case, I actually was planning to resign December 31st,
That's what I thought, yeah.
but we didn't have a replacement ready. Alyssa stepped up and is allowing me to train her, so
Okay,
that's why she's here with me tonight to
okay, all right.
learn what takes place here and
Yeah.
as much information as I can give her.
How's everything going with the staffing and all that? And,
It's getting tougher.
yeah,
We had a big turnover with our officers this year, and we're still in that learning curve and getting used to it. And
yeah,
some of it was adjusting to my leaving, because they all of a sudden found out what it was going to cost them to have a professional come in and do it, and just totally unaffordable, so.
okay.
So this is a,
You mean to replace you?
yes.
Yeah. How's your wife doing?
She's doing well. She's had a couple major surgeries in the last 2 years, but she's
Got fine memories of your father.
as do we all,
Yeah.
in the library before us. I mean, I don't know if those two ladies knew my father, but he was certainly well known there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed that you talk about it being a really tough year, that you have a $55,000 deficit.
Yes,
So,
and actually that would be much greater in the sense that when we do the depreciation, which we don't do until the auditor gets a hold of it, that'll show us a much larger number.
right, of course, it
So,
always works that way.
yes, we did have that, and we're trying to control it. We're putting in a lot of, our president is being very proactive in spending.
Who's the president now?
Jim, Big Lloyd, what, big name, yeah, I can't say him.
Jim McLeroy.
Oh,
Who is also the assistant
EMA.
EMA for Richmond, so he's well versed on all of this stuff. He's been doing it actually longer than I have, so that's over 30 years, so.
Okay.
Are you able to keep up with the employee payments? Because I remember several years ago, we probably took the taxes.
Well, the problem was that the federal government, in their
Right, but are you
infinite
keeping-
wisdom, forced us to pay people that we used to have volunteer
No, I
for.
understand. So is that payment process working? And, you know.
We are making payroll, yes,
That's fine.
we
That's what I
are,
want to know. You're making payroll,
yes,
you're supporting the people that you have. So
yes.
that, you know, when you do hire someone, they have a reasonable paycheck, or at least they.
Well, we're
expect
trying to
have-
bring people in as volunteers
Right.
and maintain that volunteer status as long as we can. The sales point that we use is, these are people that hope to make careers out of it and stuff, and we can give them a very valid experience to go to a paid department later on. And we experience everything that the big paid departments in the cities do, just on a smaller scale. But we've witnessed gunshots, we treated gunshots, we treated births, we treated, you name it, we treat it.
I think you're doing a good job, but it's certainly necessary for the town. We like having both of our organizations volunteer and not professional. I do understand the value
The
in that.
government kind of threw that backhand at us, so that a lot of the things that we would have done volunteer, and the people wanted to. But the government says if we pay them for one thing, we gotta pay them for all.
I noticed, or I shouldn't say noticed, well, actually I have, that you have I don't know the statistics, but you do get a lot of calls for 95. And it seems to be a lot of accidents just before Route 3. And then there's a lot around exit 2. And it could be north or south. But I suppose when they're taking an exit or whatever, I would ask you, and maybe this is something you think of already, that if you see a repeat of things, for instance, people are coming off the exit and they're coming off 95 and it takes an exit, you seem to see rollovers. Why is it always a rollover? Why is it always on that exit? That might be something that through the town manager, he can let the DOT know, or it's something that you do.
Actually, in my experience, our highest point of accidents on 95 is exit 3, of which is being rebuilt now. So that should improve that situation. Those
It's not
curves,
really-
people are going too fast coming into those curves.
Yeah.
Right.
If you hit, so between exit 2 and exit 3 on 95 north is a straightaway, I have to drive almost every day. And then as soon as you get to exit 3, it's that curve, and that's where a lot of
Right.
it is.
Right.
And coming the other way, it's coming down the hill from Exeter into Hope
I
Valley.
remember when my
they
kids
go
were
low
learning to
speed,
drive,
yes.
how tough that corner was.
So those
for
are
them.
by far the busiest accident areas that we have.
The other part of it too is we might not necessarily find out what caused the accident. We're there getting the patients and we're getting them to the hospital. I know a lot of stuff has been recently that I've come to find out has been unfortunately texting and on their phones or things like that. So
Yeah.
it's a variety of reasons. Whether we actually do find out the reason, then absolutely we'll kind of keep track of it.
And actually, the police do track that. The police and the DOT track
Oh, that
that
makes
very
sense,
well.
yeah.
So I don't feel that it's probably fits into our purview. As loaded as we are with paperwork now
Right,
because of
right,
the,
right.
I-
That makes
everybody
sense.
says how great computers are, but I'm thinking 20 years ago when my wife and I, or 30 years ago when we got involved, we did a single page report. We could do it easily on the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
When my wife and I retired last year, if we took somebody to Rhode Island and we had to replace meds, we had to do the report before we could leave the hospital. And it was taking an hour and a half, 2 hours at the hospital,
Wow.
which is time that you've taken away from Hope Valley for coverage. And these reports, they valuable information, but the way what the hospitals are demanding and what it is, it's hurting rural communities.
Right, turn right on.
I know you cover Connecticut Cliffs and that area.
Yeah. Connecticut Cliffs is actually calmed down from when
Yes,
it went
yes,
in.
yes, they
Very
have.
much so.
There were some years that you're up there for a fire and you're
Yes.
constantly up there, and
Yeah.
lately it's been quiet for the
It
most
has
part.
Actually, and even as a mutual aid, we probably have done almost as many calls to the one over here as a mutual aid to,
Right.
actually, because it is their territory, but
Mhm.
if they're busy, they
Right.
get called over.
Right.
Their problems with coverage have dropped. I mean, they're doing well on their coverage.
Mhm.
but we do still get called, and if they,
Sure,
got
sure, it's
2 or
both
3
ends
things
of a
going on.
very big, our town is a very big town. And
Yes.
you're really at both ends, and so being able to cover back and forth is extremely useful. And I know you take on a lot of the Richmond.
We
side.
take all of Richmond, all of Richmond.
About, yeah.
That is something that you will head all the way over towards Shannon. Where's the Charlestown ambulance located?
At the river.
So Charlestown.
Oh, their ambulance
Their
is
ambulance on
downtown.
their side of Route 1, over next to their
It's-
police station.
And that's-
By Lindgren Park.
That far?
Yes.
And that's their only site?
That is their only site.
They don't have another one?
No.
Wow.
I remember years ago,
Public safety council, and police did it too.
But that is quite a stretch for you to have to go all the way over
Well,
there.
I think the furthest end of our stretch is when you get up towards,
Exeter.
almost Exeter
Right,
School,
Harvard, right.
almost every back.
Yeah, it can take almost 20 minutes just for me to.
Yes, and that's, and I'm not proud of that response time,
But
but I
is
don't
there
see how it can
reality?
be done different.
Right.
Yeah.
Helicopter.
Yeah, we want to finance that one.
Can we review our numbers for Alabama?
I remember when you had a substation over near Joe Gardner's in Meadowbrook area years ago.
Yeah.
We did,
The
it,
sign was still there
Yeah,
for too long.
For a while.
not too,
until
we
they
took
just
it down.
reconstructed,
Yeah.
yeah.
That worked when we were pure volunteer. When we became a paid force, it no longer worked because we had the people at Station 1. So to use Station 2, they had to take their private vehicle over to Station 2, which is a slow process and a busy time, and then hop in an ambulance to make time. So it was actually faster to go from Station 1. So at that point, Station 2 became dysfunctional.
There was a lot of
And
Richmond residents.
Joe Gardner died, and the rent was going to go up by 400%. So it was a good reason to get out, it was a great excuse. And in our study of it, we did not find it functionally worth trying to keep.
It looks like, you know, our municipal budget got declined last year, so that's
I
why,
understand.
that's why you got 2,000.
I understand that.
Prior
I know when we
allocation.
left here,
So
we were.
it's important, again, we've stressed the folks that if
Yes.
you interact with anyone, you folks, I know you're a resident, Emily, right?
I am as
Yes,
well.
she
Okay, just get the word out to try and
Yes.
support the municipal budget on June 9th, so that you, again, we'll take a consensus and see if everybody's okay with 52.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we'd love to ask for the wall, but we just, it was unrealistic.
Well,
where
we're
we
still
were.
over the 4%
Yeah,
cap.
I understand that.
Exactly.
So I think we'll all be in support, unless
52?
52 is okay with me.
Absolutely.
Just please try and get the word out for June 9th to support the municipal budget.
Yes.
Okay, guys?
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you so
thanks,
much.
Richard. Good luck. Listen.
Thank
Good
you.
luck in your retirement.
Yes.
If it actually happens. I'm busier now than I was before, because I've taken on some building projects.
She seems to have the right attitude, so.
Yeah,
And you got a young person, so she's gonna be there for what, 30 years now?
We'll see.
She's already been there a lot of
I'm
years, so
actually a
this is,
member myself for 10 years.
For 10 years?
Yeah.
so she's not new to the organization, just new to this portion of it.
I was the vice president prior, so now I'm just stepping.
That's all right. Bring your age in.
As an aside, I talked to Fred Sherman last night. I saw him. I was having a cigar. He was in there having a cigar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys have a room for, and I was going to ask Eric as well if you don't, I have a large air hockey table that's like brand new. I don't know if you have like a rec area that you need something for downtime. If you don't, you don't. I just got to get rid of the thing. It's going to go in the
It
list.
would be worth looking into. I can't guarantee the
How big?
space.
No, it's decent size.
All right.
It's like brand new. We played like 5 times.
We do have what we call a rec room.
You do,
which-
okay. I didn't, I forget. I was going to call Sandy, but
It's mixed use, it's where the TV and stuff
yeah,
is.
just, I'm sure there's some downtime again. I just
And
got to.
maybe actually ambulance, and maybe you should flip for it.
Right?
I got no room
To
for
be
it.
fair,
You don't-
you
They
better-
they have less room than we do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
All right.
But, okay, so check with Sandy or whoever else and
Yeah.
let me know.
Okay, I
All right,
will.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, you're up. Okay.
I'm gonna say, good evening, town council.
Hello, Eric.
All right.
You heard our spiel.
Yeah.
You know why you got less? Because of the
Yeah,
municipal
yeah,
budget being
exactly.
declined, so I know
No
you live,
different this year.
I know you live in Westerly, but if you can get the word out to the folks So it's up to the council, I guess, what they want to allocate.
We get it on our Facebook page and stuff, you know.
Okay,
it's
June
shared.
9th is our municipal budget, so I don't know if you guys have any questions for Eric and Ashley Ambulance?
Yeah, the money that you get from the fire department, is it still anyone in the Ashway district, they don't have to be a member anymore? Everybody's automatically a member now?
That's what we've done, and we did that again this year.
So that would be your intention to move forward with that?
This is year 2, we've done that.
Okay, I want to make sure that's
Yeah,
still
and
in
that's,
effect.
it's worked, it seems to have worked out well. I think
Nicely.
and we sent out a mailing again this year, and we've actually, I think we took in like
A
$800.
mailing for what?
So we used to send out a subscription mailing.
Right,
So we send out just a postcard mailing to everyone to say that.
This
in
year?
lieu of- Yeah, we just send it out.
to tell them that they,
To let, so they get, you know,
Oh, yeah,
that you're a member of the Ashland Ambulance and that the money's coming from the fire district.
right.
And so we have received a few donations in the last month. People just send
Just
in,
felt like it.
yeah, send in their donations. That's been, you know, not that it's, you know, a great deal of
Donations are
money,
good, and I'm
but
gonna
it's,
get them.
but any bit of money we can get is important.
But I think you are really doing very well. And
Well, we're
Better.
trying.
Yeah.
The biggest issue we run into, you know, going forward is that the town council asked us to increase staffing, which we
Yeah,
did.
personnel.
Increase personnel, well, that comes at a cost. So
Right.
where our payroll used to be around 60,000, we're up over $100,000 now. So, and we're not full-time.
And
We're
there's
still,
no deficit either.
no, and so we were down a few runs this past year from up, we're up statistically this year so far, we're been busier this year. But, you know, insurances don't recover as much money as they used to, and there's just a lot of different things that are going on. I mean, we've had to do some work on the building. I've got neighbors complaining, we're getting some free work done on the front of the building right now, I've got a pile of dirt. So local companies donated tiny machines to do this work, and people are like, oh, when are you gonna get that done? It's like, I'm getting people to donate their time. I just had to take 3 trees down.
Yeah.
It cost almost about $2,000 to have 3 trees removed. They were in danger of falling on the building. We have to, nobody's giving us money for that. This just has to come out of.
Everything takes its time.
Yeah,
That's
so we're doing the best we can. We're putting some new floor in the building. We got some donations, but we're trying to get volunteers to donate time to put flooring and things like that. So we're doing everything we can to, you know, facilitate the needs. I mean, the biggest problem we run into is state mandates.
Yeah.
State mandates.
The drugs, like prescription, like drug?
A couple things
Keep us
come
up
into
to date.
play. We, for instance, last year we had to buy heated IV bags. So the state comes out and says, you need to have these bags, like a little cooler that plugs into the light.
Yeah.
They're $400 a piece. I had to buy 2 of them.
Wow.
$850.
What is it heating up?
Keeps IV bags.
Oh.
You know, what we used to do is throw them up, you know, in the wintertime, the IV bags are cold. You throw them up on the dash. You know,
Just
With
sitting
the
on
heaters.
just sitting on them.
Yeah.
Well, we used to tape hot, you know, the hot packs?
Yeah.
Tape hot packs on them. I mean, there were alternative methods to that.
Yeah.
And the ambulance is in the garage all the time, it's heated, it's not like they're cold. You know, it's not like
Yeah,
they're,
it's,
but anyway, someone at the state said we need to have these. I mean, Whole Valley Drew with it. So how many, we had to buy 3 of them probably? Yeah. So $1,200 out of the coffers, $1,200 gone. But there were several things that happened last year that were like that. Well, you know, $1,000, yeah, $1,000 there, just, you know, that's payroll for a week, you know, and that's what hurts. And then the hospitals now are not refilling all of our meds anymore. So now we have to purchase, the state says you will carry X, Y, and Z. And if you turn them into the hospital in time, they might turn them over, but some they don't. You go to Rhode Island Hospital, they don't refill any meds anymore.
so if it's like half full?
Doesn't matter.
Oh,
So when I talk about meds, I'm talking about the opioids and things like that. Thousands of dollars a year we have to spend on medications to keep in the truck that only last so long. And if we don't use them, we can't bill a patient for them. So
What do you do with them?
they get turned in, and they get,
Turned into the pharmacy.
you get turned to the pharmacy,
You
to
bring
the
them to the
hospital.
pharmacy.
They go to the hospital and they get destroyed or whatever they do with them. There are some that we can turn in ahead of time. So if we turn, let's say we have, I'll say Narcan for instance, I'll just use that as an example. And I don't push any meds, so I'm just using that as an example because everyone knows what it is. If it expires 30 days from now, we can take it to the hospital and they'll replace it because they get a better chance of using it in a hospital setting, and then we get
Oh,
a
okay,
replenishment.
that makes
But
sense.
that's
That
not
doesn't
all
work for
that
everything, yeah.
No. So, like I said, the state says you'll carry Again, no funding, we don't get any funding from the state, as you know. So it's one of those, it's a struggle all the time. You know, and things are not, you know, so what do we do, you know? We're gonna have to, at some point, you know, I'd love to get $75,000 or $100,000 from the town. I don't see it happening.
I hear you, you know, from time to time, you have to go to 95 in Connecticut. Where's the nearest ambulance for North Stonington
North
besides
Stonington,
you?
the North Stonington Emergency Services Building on,
What is,
it's on Route 2, corner of Route 2, next to the old fire station, North Stonington Firehouse. They put a brand new building up there a few years ago.
what's the, I don't, where's the distance, like 20 minutes away?
Oh, no, they're probably 10 minutes out from the state line. They're right on Route 2, just up past,
So your, what is your service area as far as Connecticut is concerned?
we don't have a service area.
But you get calls all the time.
Sure we do.
To go to North
Mutual aid,
Stonington.
yeah, mutual aid, yeah.
Mutually.
But we don't, westerly,
Do they call North Stonington first?
Yes.
And then call you? Oh, okay, okay.
and it's one of those weird things because of where we are located.
Right.
We're
You're
very
close,
close.
right,
very
you're
close.
right down the street, yeah.
So
They are
is it-
finally doing something about the signage there. There've been too many
Oh,
wrong way accidents.
well, that tractor trailer fight the other day?
Oh, yeah.
My son was working on a property right down the road and heard that guy crash.
Wow.
Drove up, stopped someone on block 49, because the debris was falling off. My son pulled the guy out of that truck.
Good.
And the guy's like, I'm just getting some stuff right. My son's like, you're coming with me now, and yanked him out of the cab. He said, the truck's gonna blow, and 100 feet away it went.
Wow, wow.
And it was also Roundup, and also, it's like, that's why it burned so hot, Roundup chemical on that truck. And that's why they watched the watershed. Yeah, so, yeah, that truck burned bad.
Oh,
But,
well, I'm glad the truck driver's okay.
yeah, he was
That's what
funny.
my husband
He was just in the cab getting stuff out of the seat.
Well, he's fine because of your son.
Well, he probably would have,
Yeah.
he could have got trapped in that pretty bad.
So anyway, tell him that.
So what happened, why would it overturn?
What's that, the truck? He didn't overturn, I think my guess is a tire caught on fire from brakes.
Oh,
So a brake line and an air brake system will go and will lock up the brakes and start a fire in the tire and burn up in the truck. And it blew a tire, I think, when it blew up, and he crashed into it. He hit several feet of guardrail and then the overpass. He hit. And that's what that, my son heard an explosion, so it wasn't sitting in the overpass, so.
And I saw him fixing the guardrail the next day.
Yeah, all
And they
fixed.
went right away. Yeah, it's a nice steep zone. Oh, steep right over.
Could have been worse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so-
been much worse.
I know,
Anyway.
you know, the budget got declined last year, so you request 52, you got 50, you're requesting 54, but again, we awarded Hope
Yeah,
Valley 52.
We're gonna go for 52.
Yeah.
We take whatever we can get.
Absolutely.
Again, I told Richard, I'm gonna mention to you, Eric, you know, anybody that's a resident that you guys know, June 9th is the municipal budget, we need it to pass, so you can get your increase and we can get our municipal budget moving forward, so please put out
Get the word out.
And we're gonna do the best we can to get the budget down.
Yeah, we'll do our best too, but, you know.
Barbara, you said something earlier, in this, and I'll ask this question. With all the solar farms going in, are we going to at some point see
Yes, revenue.
some revenue?
Yes.
And,
What we have this
and,
year.
and
This year.
$100,000 or several, you know?
No, this year is fees, and next year is when taxes and revenue will come in,
Right.
and that's going to, it's over $500,000.
Okay, so not
Right
much
now,
really.
right now,
Yeah.
before we
Oh,
have
no,
another
that's-
couple.
They all come on
online.
online at
They
different
they come
times.
online at different times, but yeah.
I mean, what
And
is the
when
town
you
hoping
pull-
to see overall? I
But
mean,
when you pull a building permit, you don't get the full amount.
right.
They give part of it when the project's completed, they pay the rest of it, which is the bigger chunk. But because our budget failed and we got contractual obligations, we've had to use any extra revenue that has come in to meet contractual, even
Sure.
though the budget failed. You're required to, for fire police, well, not fire, but police. So, yeah, to pay people.
Yeah.
So some of that revenue is getting eaten up
Yeah.
already
Right.
in this current budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess
But
the
there
question
is still revenue, and that's revenue
Well-
that we're gonna use to get the budget down
Correct.
as much as we can. Correct.
So we tax land at a higher rate and the tangibles on the panels get taxed, so that
Yeah.
stuff hasn't hit yet. Hasn't
Hasn't been good yet.
And ultimately, it will be substantial, it'll be at least a 5% of our budget. and that's substantial.
Oh, well, certainly.
And that will lower tax rates, try to
Or
keep
lower
us-
the increases.
Right,
yeah.
lower the
Yeah.
increases, keep the school increases down, but it will be, we think it's, some of us think it's of value.
I think from, and again, I'm not gonna give you a big argument whether yay or nay or, you know, what it is, but I think some of the questions that people have is to answer that question maybe, so they understand that, you know, I'll use Baxter Hill, for instance, and I live with my father every night to take care of my dad, but, so I'm on Juniper Drive, so I'm very familiar with that property. And so it says, well, they cut right to the road. Well, if it was farmland, they could have cut right to the road. If they put a housing development in, they could have cut right to the road. And then, so houses bring more revenue, no, they don't.
They're expensive.
It's like,
They add to our school budget,
it
which,
is around 15,000 deficit
Okay.
if they have a child, one child.
yeah, just,
No,
it's just interesting.
thank you for any help you can do, that would be.
Yeah, like I said,
And we
you know,
are definitely trying.
So if you want the extra $2,000,
Yeah.
put out the word and have your residents.
like I said, like I said, unfortunately, all these costs keep going up, and we're trying to supply this,
You
you
have
know.
the same problem that we do,
It's around, it's not gonna change, it's not gonna get better, so,
death and taxes.
yeah. You bet.
All right, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Appreciate your time, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Reddish?
All right,
What's
Hi
happening?
there, how are you?
I sit on the side.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
Generally, I see you at
Is
the
Chris coming or? you-
Yes, Chris is
Oh,
coming.
okay.
Well, the list coming for what?
Community challenge.
So maybe
okay.
we do council
Yeah,
stipends
we
now.
can probably do that, yeah.
Sure.
Thanks, Al.
All right, you made a little comment at the last time when you talked about the town council stipend, and you said, it'd be nice if it was, you know, if it wasn't raised. And so I asked Brian to give me some information, and what you see is technically in 2004, the town council stipend was $11,917. And in 2005, it went up by $358. And then in 2012, it went down by 100. So we have not really had an increase
In a
for
long
15 years. So I was being bold. You said 500, I said 1,000. If you look
Oh,
at,
no,
I think, you know,
I
it
think
would increase the budget. I like that.
I'm zero.
I hear you.
So
No,
I
that's fine.
just to let you know.
Okay, that's
And I
fine.
think that we're, I mean, look at Richmond, how little they get.
But look at Charlestown. Charlestown
But
has gone up.
Charlestown's rich.
That's, you know,
That's what
just because we don't live in Charlestown doesn't mean that people don't need money. And if the budget hasn't gone up in 15 years, I think it's time.
At the same,
Yeah.
at the same time, Charleston, Hopkinton, and Richmond are similar. We're just similar. If you take,
In
we
population.
have similar population.
Yeah.
You raise it $1,000, and Coventry with 35,000 is only 500 above you. East Providence with 13,000 people is under you. Middletown at 16,000 people is 1,000 more. Newport at 24,000 people.
Where are you
I'm
reading?
president's salary.
Yeah,
President's salary.
Okay, you're reading.
So Newport, you'd be 1,000 more. They have 24,000 people. Smithfield has 21,000 people. If you raise the 1,000, you are,
And then if
this
you,
is, we have 8,000
and
people.
so what? New Shoreham has 1,000 people and they pay their people.
Barbara,
No, it's
I'm not
just,
going, so it doesn't really matter what the
I
population
don't think
is.
so.
My point is
It's
that we
remote
have
uh,
not had a raise in 15 years, and I think
We
that
give
people
everyone
do
raises.
have,
We give everyone raises on the town,
we do.
right.
and we are the most, I think the most, well, I shouldn't say the most important, but we're a very important part of town government, right? And I think you need to reward the work that's done.
Thank you.
I work very hard at it, okay?
So
And
I think
and I
that
know
we
everyone,
all
oh, I
do.
know that, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I think, again, I've always thought it was really low, and I don't really care if people, there's more population, it doesn't matter,
Right.
because I work very hard at it. And if you put the time into it, and you're worth it, I don't see why you shouldn't get a little bit more. That's my thoughts.
See, I think it was too high 15 years ago, and 10 years ago. It was too high.
Maybe.
Everybody has,
But you-
So
everybody has
so
an
I'm just
opinion.
telling you where I'm at. I
Okay,
don't want to,
I hear you.
I don't want to increase it.
First of all, I do believe that the council should have an increase, but I don't support it because of the financial situation of the town. The bottom line is this. 2 years ago, we only had 5 candidates for 5 spots. And years ago, in the town of Richmond, neither party could come up with 5 candidates, and people actually got elected as write-ins. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but it actually happened in Richmond years ago. And the bottom line is the town council is the supreme body in the town, as far as budgets, appointing to other boards and commissions, and things like that. And that time will probably come again where we're gonna have a hot, not in this election, but in a future election. I think the council members should have an increase, but because of the financial situation we have in this town, this town council, I understand we're $87,000 over the cap right now. Right. So we shouldn't increase it on that, but I do applaud Sharon Davis, because it's a problem recruiting people. Unless you're a political junkie like myself, a lot of people do not want to run for town council. There might be some issue, like right now with solar or whatever, that it gets people interested, but usually people don't do that.
You do it because you love the town.
Oh, I know, but
You
again,
don't
it's,
do it because of how much money
it's
you
a
get.
lot of work and it's no
This
money.
is nothing, we're talking about,
This is something. We're talking about $12,275.
Sorry, it's not.
it's not 2,000, it's 175.
Excuse me, 1,200,
Even
12,175
divided by
Let
5 people.
let me tell you my thoughts.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think it should be more, okay? But I think, this hasn't been, this is something that I brought up even prior to Sharon.
That's true.
Okay. Now, we have Mr. Phillips, we have, for instance, the land trust, right? They wanted an extra $5,000 from the revenue from the clerk's office. And I think 3 of you voted, I don't know, 4 of us, I didn't vote for it. I would be in favor of reducing that or keeping it at 10, not 15, because they got $20,000 a year extra in solar revenue. That's maybe for the next 20 or 25 years. So we've given them that's 25,000 extra. I wouldn't want to see the budget go up either, so I agree with Scott. But again, giving the land trust 5,000 more, plus they get 20,000 more from a revenue source, and then we also have to pay 170,000 in debt service for the land trust. It just, that bothers me.
Yeah, I don't.
You know,
I
so
understand.
I would rather see $5,000 go to the council, drop them to 10, and not have any increase. That's my thoughts. Because I tell you, the land trust, they're nice people, but they're takers, they're not givers, and it bothers me.
I
So-
think, I disagree,
Yeah, you
and first of all, I think the land trusts are definitely givers. They take care of the land, it is for
Talk to
thousands,
Brian on the
it's
QT about
thousands
that.
of people that use the land, and it is, we have one of the strongest land trusts in the
Yeah,
state.
we pay for it.
And they can ask for a bond at any time,
Yeah, I'm
over
not
and
gonna support
above.
it,
It
ever.
doesn't matter, you don't have to.
I
It
would
can
not.
be on that, on our
Anyway.
budget, on it as a warrant item. I think that giving them the money keeps them moving and working on the pieces.
Well,
they
you're not gonna
have.
sell me on anything with that
I-
land trust.
I
It's just
know
not.
that.
So I don't know what you're talking about, it isn't me.
Oh,
So,
then I-
so
So
if
if we were,
Okay,
Not
that's
you.
fine.
well, it sounds like if we
So
were to find
consensus?
another place
So
in the budget
consensus,
to
let's
massage
just
it.
do a consensus.
All right, so-
No increase on town council. I don't care if we have $1 million surplus.
No.
Okay, well,
That's fine. That's
I would
just all I
support an
know.
increase, for sure, but I want to take it from the land trust, pull them back to 10 and take their 5.
Okay, so you're a no, I'm a no, and Barbara,
So
you
you
a
know,
no?
Scott, if that's.
No, this is, right, at this present time, I'm a no, but I'm swayable, okay?
All right, because if we can massage the budget so it's not
Then
increasing.
let's see what happens
In
March
total?
9th. Then
I'm
see what happens
flexible on
on
it.
Okay. So that
All right,
sounds
All right,
like-
so-
So for the
what do we
moment,
do?
it
For the moment,
stays,
no.
it stays the way it is.
Right.
Okay, all
Table.
right, that's fine.
Till
Deal
when?
with it Monday.
Monday, okay,
Monday.
all right.
Mr. President, you might want to look at one other thing as you think about this, instead of a an actual cash incentive or, stipend, look at doing a tax exemption that's just a flat rate for the council members for participating in the council. So you pay your taxes, your house gets, but look at it a different way, and just maybe it's a tax exemption. Maybe it's $1,000 tax exemption or $500 tax exemption. So it's not money going into your pocket, but it might be another way to look at it.
We have to talk to finance.
Yeah, see if you can do it that way, but that might be kind of almost like we do the senior exemption of the town.
Yeah.
You probably have to pass an ordinance.
Yeah, right.
But that might be a different way
A
of
little more
looking at it.
complicated.
Yeah,
You doing that, Richmond? No.
No, but I'm just saying, it's another way of looking at, we do the senior exemption, which is, but
but
that might.
but you have to be only on social security to be able to qualify for it.
Right, but you can write
You
your,
can't even, I'm sorry. No, I'm talking about the money.
right,
You can't have a part-time job.
right.
You just have to be getting your
Well,
social
if you're at full
security check.
retirement age, you can, right?
At full
No,
retirement age.
no, it's based on salary, it's
Right.
based on income.
Income,
So if I have a part-time job, I make too much money
For what?
but you can write,
to get a
you can write your
senior
own,
exemption.
but you can write your own.
And that's
rules.
right, should
Here, I'm an old lady, but I'm not
No,
talking
you're making
about.
money.
When you get to 85, it's different, Sharon.
85? Oh, gee.
You can look forward to that.
Seriously?
Yeah, there's something Harvard initiated. When you get to 85, it figures you're golden, man. You know, you've survived.
That's a good ripe old age, Bob.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna make it.
Good call.
I won't make
It
it.
should have reduced that a little bit.
So, anyway,
Anyway,
we're done.
We're done.
And you're not gonna talk about the others?
The agenda's already been posted for next Monday night.
What's that?
Chris is here.
Bill?
The agenda has already been posted for next Monday night.
You have to post it, and it doesn't, I don't believe it has land trust on it, but
Or.
it is not the
Well,
be all and
But
all
what
to your
about, isn't
discussion.
that what the warrants? Isn't that warrant category cover everything?
It's too vague.
That's not the end of
It's
it
too
either.
vague.
It's not the end of it.
That's not the end,
Because
Sharon.
we have to, by the charter, have the budget workshops done, and then, because we have at the end of the month, have to publish a proposed budget.
Right.
But you still have opportunities to address it,
Yeah, and
because
here,
you can, you'll have your district financial meeting the second Tuesday in May, it's the 5th, and then you'll adopt a budget shortly after that, so you still have time to address
Because
it.
by that time, we'll know the school budget.
You'll know the budget.
So what meeting would we bring this
You
up?
can bring it up on, the district financial meeting, which would be May 5th at 7:30. Where it's the public hearing on the budget.
Yeah, but then,
But you won't adopt it that night, then you think you have to adopt it.
Sure.
it's a lot easier to do it quietly. Big.
well, we'll have our own hearing. We'll listen to anybody who says yes, no, change this, that, whatever, from the audience at the hearing. And then you'll have a council meeting where you say, okay, we've got last minute changes, or because of what got said at the hearing,
Okay.
we've
we'll
got
make sure we
changes.
structure that agenda.
So you still have changes right up to and after the hearing. And the hearing is May, what
The
is it?
hearing is May 5th.
May 5th.
And the thing is, we need that because we won't know the school.
Right.
And we need to know the school to
Okay,
do
so
the
this,
final smudge.
there's still a potential lifeline there, so,
It is,
Okay.
it is.
anyway.
Especially since God is swayable.
You heard it. You heard it on the record.
He's swayable. All right, thank you.
All right, Community 2000.
Yeah.
Mr.
Good
Phillips.
evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you all know Mr. Reddish. Mr. Reddish is one of our board members. He's here tonight because none of our Hopkinton board members could make it to give me moral support. So,
That's not a good sign.
I thought it was always you anyway.
what?
No one's going to accept you, I don't think.
Well,
He's never invited me before.
There, see?
so anyway,
You're just bored.
No, this kind of Grace deserves it from me.
anyway, January and February are gone. Baseball and spring are coming, so it's a good time of the year. We're now in our 21st year, starting our third decade, which amazes me. And in 2015, we set a goal to grow our scholarship endowment to $1.4 million. And it was about a little less than $700,000 at that time. And so the idea is $1.4 million at 5% return gives you $70,000 a year. That's $2,000 scholarships. So we typically give between 30 and 35 scholarships a year. And we spend all the money that comes in between January and June basically to meet that scholarship bill in June of a given year. So when we get to that 1.4 million, we can use that money that comes in between January and June to either give more scholarships or larger dollar amount scholarships, or more educational projects, because we also give educational projects and student awards in the regional school district. But for our last 5 years, we focused on building that scholarship endowment. So typically, of the 30 to 35 scholars that we support each year, roughly 3/4 of them are sophomores, juniors, and seniors, because once we start with a kid, we stay with them for his full undergraduate education. So we can give 8 or maybe 9 new scholarships a year, and typically we don't pay much attention to the town that the kid comes from. They generally end up being split pretty evenly between the 3 towns. So when we started 20 years ago, we said we wanted to be a multi-community organization. We want to be an all-volunteer organization, so there's never been any salaries associated with our organization, and we want to build endowments and simultaneously give scholarships and educational project grants. So that's sort of our story in a nutshell. You know from our application, we're asking for $500. $500 is what you gave us, I believe, 2 years ago. And
we're stuck with it because the budget failed, so it wouldn't matter, yeah, so anyway.
Wouldn't matter what we asked for.
Yeah, I know, or what we awarded, you'd end up with the 17, 18 year.
Well, actually, Brian sent me a check this year for $500.
Good thing you got the 500, yeah.
I called him up and I said, Brian, what a surprise. He said, oh no, that was a mistake. I had to give that back. But in your wisdom, and watching Democracy in Action here tonight, in your wisdom, if you can find $500 for us, we'd be very appreciative. Every dollar counts as we move forward.
What is your endowment right now?
The scholarship endowment, we passed $1 million the end of the year, so we actually, last year was a very wonderful year because we had great support from our donors and we had great support from the stock market, which doesn't happen every year.
Which is not going to happen this year.
And may not happen this year.
Right. And what, would you tell people so they can hear at home about one of my favorite scholarships you have, which is the Carpenters or
Yes,
Tool Scholarship?
So in our scholarship endowment, we have, I think there's 12 different segments. We have a couple of memorial segments. We have a segment from Quantico dog donors, because that's where we started, in the Quantico dog section of Charlestown. And we've got automotive, construction, culinary, marine technology, engineering, 5 or 6 or 7 segments that are career and tech segments. We believe in career and tech education. Not every kid has to go to a 4-year college. And we also give a tool award to a young man or woman coming out of construction who's not going to college at all, but going strictly into the industry. And this year, I think we're going to give the tool award to an automobile kid. So we like that. So we spend about $100,000 a year between scholarships, educational project grants, and student awards. And the only thing that's new in the last 6 or 7 years is the Mattie Potts Spirit of Community Leadership Award. So we've been raising money for that. This will be our 3rd year raising money for that. And this year we will reach the $40,000, which will vest 2 $1,000 Mattie Potts Spirit of Community Leadership Awards that go to graduating seniors in each June. So we love that mix of scholarships, educational project grants, and student awards. And so as I said, every dollar counts. If you can find it in your hearts to find some money for us, we would be very appreciative. So let me stop. I've said enough. Let me stop and answer questions.
Yeah, the same as,
I generally don't.
I generally don't either,
We
but.
don't give to all kinds of little scholarships or little areas. we really have spent our money because we're very frugal on the libraries, the fire stations, healthcare, because it handles the entire town. I believe very much in Community 2000. I donate to Community 2000, and I think it should be a private issue, not a municipal government subsidy. I think that's a mistake. But privately, I think it's wonderful, and I encourage anyone to give money to Community 2000, but I don't like doing it as a municipal.
We've come to understand your concerns and
Right.
recognize that we're swimming against the tide here a little bit when we come to visit with you. But I hope in the next 3 or 4 years we will reach that $1.4 million goal, and then we'll be gone. Now, I know originally when we started 20 years ago, Scott Bill was on council, and we came and said, help us get started and we'll go away. And we did. It went away for 15 or 16 years. So.
Did they help you get started?
Yes, they did. They did. We're just very pleased to have, we've lived for 20 years in sort of a Goldilocks financial zone. With the exception of 2008, 2009, it's been very special. So that's probably not going to last forever, and we're very lucky to have been part of that Goldilocks.
That's all right, we'll be a Goldilocks next year.
So any other questions that I can answer for you about who we are or what we do?
I just wanted to share one thing, and I did some numbers. I'm not a finance person, even though I'm in the bank and I hate numbers. It's
That
about,
makes sense, Joe.
it's about 6 cents per resident that has a return on investment. I know you don't want to invest into a private institution, but this private institution spends a lot of money back into the public as far as educating and providing continued education for the young people who live in all 3 communities. So those young people come back and work at places like Wood River Health and different industries. And so it's really a way of just, not everybody in the community is blessed like yourself to be able to donate to us directly, but this is a way for everybody to, I always say, the many make up the mass. And so I almost say, if everybody picked up that dime each day and just dropped it off here, by the end of the year, you'd have enough for that 500. We're just asking, it's based about 6 cents a person across the 3 towns. It has a return. And I would say if I was able to invest $500 a day and get almost about a $40,000 return on it in 5 years, that's an investment you can't pass up usually. So that's really where it breaks down to. So.
How did it happen that they didn't get money in this fiscal year when the prior budget they got?
Yeah, I think Bill and I were just discussing that and how that should have been handled. And
So they should get.
I think they should.
Right.
Yeah, I think they should.
Yes, that's why I didn't
Well,
understand.
you
You're owed $500.
It
Well,
was,
last year you turned us down, so.
Yeah, but the budget got
The
defeated.
vote, that's right.
When
Budget
our
got
budget gets
defeated.
defeated, it goes to the prior fiscal year, and with the prior fiscal year, we
It
didn't
said
have.
you
Well,
got
good, then you
500.
can give us $1,000. We'll be very happy to take it.
no, it's in the current, it would be the current year. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of confusion because the council did turn them down last year.
Right.
So, and then, but the budget, it's still in the budget, so, I don't,
Then they
We
get
did
their-
reduce
so they're
the
owed
budget.
500.
for this
Right.
year.
You are owed
You
500.
are.
For this
So
year.
eventually you'll get a check, 500, don't be
But
surprised.
that's
And you
from
get
the
to keep
prior,
it.
that's from 2 years ago.
That's from 2 years ago, yeah, because the current budget failed.
And no interest.
No.
I mean,
I don't.
right.
It's gonna be paid out, it's in this year's budget. You know,
Right.
yeah, you're right, it was initially funded 2 years ago.
Right.
And it's still in there from 2 years.
So we can give you that, but
But it wasn't last year.
it wasn't last
It was
year.
2 years ago.
Right.
Right, because last year we voted it down.
Mhm.
And,
I don't think he cares, I think he'll take the
Oh,
money.
no.
that 500 was the year before.
You're-
So,
Last year,
what was
You're
last
a
year,
mind reader, Karen.
last year we voted it down
Regardless of what
as
the year is,
council,
right?
Right.
and the budget failed, it didn't make any difference,
Right.
except that he's owed 5. We're talking about this year.
Right.
And we just don't handle all kinds of small ones. And as soon as you start with one, you're going to get 20. And Richmond has this enormous amount of small ones. I would, we spend our money specifically for fire, ambulance, libraries, health. This is valuable. We just don't.
Well, I agree with you. That's why we didn't do it prior to. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the council.
I agree with.
Okay.
I had talked to Joe when he called me tonight, and I just have a fundamental issue about how the board awards these things, and
So let me talk about that. We have a committee, scholarship committee, that plows through roughly 30 scholarship applications, 30 new ones a year. And we can fund 8 or 9. So that committee that has one board member, Chris Getman is the chair, but there are no other board members on that committee. So that committee looks at the applications for a couple of weeks, meets on a Saturday, goes through, argues about, who ought to get the scholarship and who isn't going to get the scholarship. And we have to turn down 20 or 22 viable candidates, which is discouraging for us. We'd like to be able to support all, and almost every kid that we get is a worthwhile kid. So the scholarship committee looks at financial need, which is really the only criterion we have that's set in stone. You have to be able to show some level of financial need. And then the scholarship committee looks at grades, activities, and so
How do you
forth.
show need if you're not getting tax return? How the hell do you know what they need or they don't?
We have a nice little form that says, here's what my tuition is going to be, here's what my room and board is going to be, here's what my travel expenses are going to be, here's what my books are going to be, here's what I'm going to contribute, here's what my family is going to contribute, here's what I'm going to borrow. And the difference between those two, we call the level of financial need. So we don't get into how much money the parents make or anything like that. So, but we do look at that, the difference between the expenses and the amount of money that the kid or the young adult or the parents are going to contribute, and then what the difference is between that. So that's how the committee looks at what the level of financial need is. So you get 2 kids that are outstanding students, and one has real high financial need, and the other has low financial need, and you know who gets the scholarship. So it's a tough set of decisions that have to be made. So the scholarship committee makes a recommendation to the board of who is going to be the scholarship winners for the coming year. And the board basically rubber stamped that. I don't think we've ever overridden what the scholarship committee has recommended.
The other area that we also contribute to, that a lot of people aren't aware to, we give grants to the schools, to teachers for special programs. These are things that normally would have been funded out of the taxpayers' dollars. So we offset and get those extra things, whether it's electronic board, we finance on the computers.
Charles got enough money, Joe. Why don't you save the money and give it to more students? That's what I would say.
Well, but,
Keep it and then award another scholarship.
but in the big picture things, when we talk about, say, a $500 request from the town, it's 6 cents per resident. So that 6 cents, maybe Hope Valley got a electronic board that can benefit 300 or 400 students. Okay, Richmond got a laptop that a teacher can utilize. Charlestown got, something, books that they couldn't normally buy because they didn't have it in the school budget. So that's where we kind of fill in the blanks and fill those gaps, because those are those things that maybe we couldn't, they might have gotten cut from the school budget, but we help you on the other side
I
of the
think
picture.
overall, because all of us deal very closely with the school budget, there's a lot of extra money in the school budget, which is why we need them to cut. Not teachers, not programs, not capital, there's lots of places to cut. And they generally have real problems doing that.
It's overestimated line items.
It is overestimated line items, and it's not, and we know they do great work, but everything around that, they're still overestimated. And you can see it on the year to year to year. You can see the actuals and just what it goes up, and it's outrageous sometimes. And it's so hard to make them even look at a $40,000 ad, where if they cut 20, which would be 20,000 more than the prior year, and they can't cut. So it's not something. I have another question though. In the list of students this time, you've got a student from West Kingston and a student from Exeter. And I always thought it was just in the Chariho area.
If there's a student who goes to Chariho, say, goes to Chariho Career Tech, They might come from Westwood, they might come from West Kingston. I think part of West Kingston is in Richmond, is it not? So if a kid is going to Charo, and they happen to come to Charo because they're in a career tech program from some other town, then they're, as far as we're concerned, they're eligible for our scholarships. So, and of course, a kid that lives in Charleston, Hopkinton, Richmond, that goes to Bishop Pendleton or Prout is also eligible for our scholarships. So, but most of our scholarships, new scholarships, go to graduating seniors that are either in the Charo High School or the Charo Career and Tech.
And I do admire that you follow them all the way through 4 or 5 years of schooling if they make the right grades.
That was one of the original stipulations that we put in place when we started, because, you know, a kid gets a scholarship as a freshman, and then he's a sophomore and the money goes away, well, that's no good. So we have this pipeline of 8 or 9 freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, and if they're a pharmacy major or a physical therapy major or an engineering major, and it's a 5-year or 6-year program, then we'll carry them through to the end.
Well, I really do think you do great work. I just don't think it should be invisible.
We haven't heard from Scott, so.
Well, obviously, you know, years ago I did give them money. I not only opposed Community 2000, I believe philosophically taxpayers' money should not be used for any private scholarship. People should support the scholarship. The scholarships of their choice, and we don't have to find fault with Community 2000 or anything like that. But no scholarship, private scholarship, should be funded by taxpayer dollars, whether it's Community 2000 or any other private organization. And I'm a little, you know, nobody wants to be seen be against kids or education and those type of things. And so they end up having a philosophical problem. Years ago, Hopkins gave a lot of money to various small things, and I think it was great that a lot of them were reduced. The bottom line is that you don't have to find fault with an organization. And people have to start realizing that you have children and families, that those families have a hard time paying property taxes. And town government derives most of the revenue from property taxes. I don't see all these people in a lot of these groups going out after the Charahoe budget. They keep their mouth shut about it. Charahoe is strangling the town.
Literally.
Yeah, strangling Charleston and Richmond, and everybody keeps their mouth shut about it. And I resent that.
Hopkinton and Richmond.
If you want somebody to understand your situation, you've got to reciprocate and respect the dilemma that other people have. And I know town of Richmond spends more of its tax dollars, property tax dollars, on education than the town of Hopkins does. And it's about time the political leadership and the community leadership start speaking out about it. It shouldn't be just a few people. And in addition to that, as I said, I have a philosophical problem with taxpayers funding scholarships. I don't have to find a fault with any scholarship. People should support the scholarship of their choice. And I know years ago I gave you $10 or whatever. I'm not going to give them any more money. I resent the fact they come to the people of this town for funding, and I don't care if it ended up in the Wesley Sun, because I did write a letter years ago speaking against it. And I'm not too happy. And what Charleston and Richmond do, I can't control what they do. But I resent the fact, or I will resent the fact that Hopkins initiates it. I don't find any fault with them. They shouldn't be coming to the taxpayers for funding. They should derive and get their own financial support like any other scholarship does in this region. Thank you.
Okay, so anyway, it's a 0.
Sorry,
Yeah.
But you'll get a check from.
But you get a $500 check that you didn't expect, and don't give it back.
Victory!
Unintended consequence.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Good to see you.
You're welcome to see
Nice
you.
to see you.
Okay.
I appreciate the concerns that you have to try to look at the Hopkinton budget and how it fits into the charitable budget.
It's all right.
And as I've said, hopefully in a couple more years we'll be gone. We won't have to worry about us anymore.
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure if you will. You probably raise that 1.5 to 2 and give out more scholarships,
Well,
which I think is fine.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
talk
you,
to
Barbara.
Joe, he'll give you the money, the difference.
What?
Just talk to Joe?
Oh, no, right here.
Oh, no, yeah, oh, that's right, the
Yeah.
Tufts, the Tufts, yeah.
TEFFT,
Yeah, yeah.
the Tufts Scholarship.
Hey, that's an idea.
Hey, there we
Tech
go.
Foundation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Yes, young lady, who are you?
Zero.
I'm from the Wild Clinic of Rhode Island.
Oh,
If you want to come to the front bench, we'll wait for Scott. He has-
and just so you, no, come on up, and just so you'll know, or for everybody, anybody can come and ask for money. They can ask, and they, so I agree with what Scott said, except I don't resent anybody who wants to.
No.
So I'm not sure he, well, anyway, but
Yeah.
thank you and welcome.
If you don't mind, we'll wait for our friend in the men's room.
The tough guy,
The honorary.
honorary.
Yeah, I always think that's more correct.
He's like crazy about politics right now, so he's really wound up with everything going on. He's gonna be wound up until November, I guess. We're pretty
So,
level
wild-
headed, we try to.
Wildlife, okay. Yeah. Doesn't seem like we ever funded it.
No, we didn't.
No, okay.
No.
How the birds doing, good?
And we get 0.66 from us. 0.66% birds from us.
Oh,
Yeah, I read it, I thought it was really good. And
Oh, okay.
they do wonderful work, especially I love the owls, you take care of the owls. Because I think you have done great stuff.
Do you know, the owl population, do you have a feel for which particular owl is the most popular? Or not, the most populous, I should say? Is it, I didn't know if you had a feel for that. Are there more barn owls
We
or?
get more barn owls
Oh, okay.
into the clinic because of injury. That is the most, so when you look at all of our different owls that are in the state, barn owls are the most plentiful that come into the.
And in the winter, you have snowy owls sometimes.
Once in a
They're
great
pretty
while,
rare.
we haven't had one in a few years.
Wonderful.
Which is
Because
always
they
good.
nest on the
They're
ground.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
They're all beautiful, and you just want to listen to them.
And the
And they're everywhere.
The snow is often on the ground, which is always worrisome.
This young lady's here from the Wildlife
Rehabilitators.
Rehabilitators Association of Rhode Island. Very,
Take it
very
easy
worthy,
on her.
very worthy, very worthy. Very
The
worthy.
answer is no, okay?
Come on up to the microphone, so
No,
that,
I don't need to.
No,
it's just, it's so people at home can hear about your organization. It'll be good, so tell us about all the wonderful things you do.
My name is Kim Parenti and I work for the Wildlife Clinic of Rhode Island. Our nonprofit organization is located in Saunderstown, Rhode Island. We are the only clinic in the state of Rhode Island permitted by DEM to provide veterinary and rehabilitative care for the native wildlife. We ask for a subsidy or appropriation from each city and town in Rhode Island to help with the cost of care for these animals. Tonight, I ask you to help with our mission of providing quality and humane care to injured and orphaned wildlife with the goal of release back into the environment.
Now, if anyone at home wants to donate,
Sure?
tell us who to send it to and where the check should go.
Sure. It's the Wildlife Clinic of Rhode Island.
Where are you located?
The address is 2865 Tower Hill Road, Saunderstown, Rhode Island, 02874.
That's the high rent district, okay.
What was the street again?
Towers.
2865?
Tower Hill Road.
Tower Hill.
The Tower
That's
Hill
how
District.
Andrew comes from Saunders.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
so-
inside,
know
so
all about it.
Maybe we should connect you two.
I'm gonna have to go to his mansion sometime.
And my question is, in wildlife rehabilitation, what kind of animals do you have the most of?
I would say most of is birds, as opposed to mammals. Birds as opposed to mammals, yes.
And they bring you the babies all spring.
And we get babies all spring and summer, we do.
Are
And
they
so we're
supposed-
getting prepared for that. Our first baby squirrel did come in last week. Did not make it, but there's gonna start coming.
Do you need to tell people not to touch them?
Sure, absolutely, unless you think the animal really is in need of help or care, you can always bring it to us or call me on the phone and I can diffuse the situation if I need to. I can ask you certain questions, because a lot of people do bring in whole nests of baby bunnies and we'll get 8 baby bunnies. The next hour I'll get another 6, and by the end of the day I have almost 30,
Oh,
so
my goodness.
If you don't have to bring them in, it's always good. So it's just if they're hurt or injured. A lot of people think that their mom is not gonna come back,
But the mother's there.
but mom usually stays away,
Yeah.
especially baby,
Yeah.
moms that have baby bunnies. They don't stay with the nest the whole time.
No.
She'll stay away from the nest to draw predators away. Baby bunnies don't have a very good sense of, like, they don't have a smell on them when they're newborn, so, she can just put the fluff over the top and just walk away.
That's
and
what
she
they
can
do.
do her thing.
They cover them.
That's
Yeah,
what
and
they
then
do.
she only,
Yeah.
her formula, her milk is very concentrated, so she doesn't have to feed them very often. So people, when they see no one's touched the nest for 4 hours, they get panicky, and then they say, oh, I have to bring them in,
How
so
big is your facility?
it's small.
I mean, how much can you take in?
Well, the trick is not just to do it all the wildlife care at the clinic, but we have rehabbers who do it at home.
Oh, okay.
Especially baby animals, because they need so much care and attention, and cleaning and feeding and just monitoring, and that's always good when someone can do that at home, and you can have one batch of baby bunnies, so you can have just 6 or 7 bunnies and just take care of that, or you can have a little nest of baby robins that have 3 or 4, and that's all you take care of. So if you have a lot of people who can do it just a little bit, it works.
They're all volunteer.
They're all volunteers, yes.
And like anything else, babies are a lot of time, lots of time. I know I had, in my backyard, I had a bunny nest, and I have a beagle, basset hound and a greyhound. Neither smelled and it was in a raised bed. Neither smelled the babies. I saw the fluff and I was cleaning my garden,
And that's what
and these
happens.
babies ran. And I thought, oh my God, I have to get the dogs inside. And they didn't smell them at all.
Yeah.
And the next morning, she had moved all of them. They all had a whole different place they went. And so I thought, oh, thank God.
That's why you rarely see the bunnies
Yeah.
unless you're, cleaning
It was a
around.
mistake, I'll never do it again. It's trauma.
All right, well, thank you.
Well,
Thank
hopefully
you.
somebody at home will say, I want to give them
Absolutely.
some money, or
That's-
volunteer.
Yes, absolutely, we always need more people, so.
I thank you for coming before us, but years ago, we used to give money to a lot of nonprofits. Somebody went into a financial time meeting before we had the present format, and made a motion to cut, and we had to do away with the libraries and the ambulance. I think there are a lot of commendable organizations, but I don't think they should be funded by property taxpayers, which how we generate our revenue. Nothing personal, so I'm opposed to funding you. That doesn't mean I'm against your organization. I am kind of conservative, so.
Thank you for sharing
Thank you
your
for coming
organization
tonight.
with us.
Have a good night.
You too, thank you. Okay.
So I didn't bring my agenda, are we done?
No, maybe something. maybe-
Well,
Yeah,
why do we
they're not
have
here.
Southern Rhode Island
But-
volunteers? They're gone.
Frank, what's the one with neighbors helping neighbors?
Well, it's a nonprofit, they're out
That's the
there.
one that
Is
did,
the town gonna give any money to them?
no.
No.
I'll donate $1,000 to the neighbors helping neighbors as long as it's done to a resident in Hopkinton.
What does that mean?
So they're gonna help a
Somebody
resident,
benefit.
if they help somebody in Hopkinton,
Oh,
I'll
oh,
donate $1,000.
That's
But they,
wonderful.
I looked at the numbers and they had helped, if I, from memory, I don't think I brought, 6 people in Hopkinton.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
correct.
really-
Yes.
Yeah, we will definitely let them know
How do
that.
we,
That
how
is
do we-
great, thank
how
you
do we
so
do that?
much.
That's-
Jason.
Well,
That's great.
you're gonna donate.
I'll donate to the town can donate to them.
Why don't you donate
Oh,
direct?
no, donate to
Donate
them.
You got it.
Yep. And do you need their address?
Yep, they can just send it all to me or
Oh,
send
do
me
you
an email.
have their, I can give you this.
Yeah,
um,
sounds good.
That's Sylvia.
Oh, and let me tell you specifically, clients served a total of 31 people this prior year,
Mhm.
and 6 of them were from Hopkinton. And as you know, resident in Hope Valley got a brand new roof
Yes.
because he had no way
Yeah,
to put a roof on his house.
Right.
So, yes.
So they're really good people, they do.
Yeah.
I will say that I've talked to them about giving me some help with my house, but you have to have homeowners insurance, which I currently do not have, so I wouldn't be able to.
No,
You
that's not
gotta
true.
have me.
That's not true, Scott.
I've already.
Yeah, you have to have insurance.
Not for neighbors helping others.
Yes, you do. because I talked to
You
him
looked
about
into it.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
Because you
I know
it. I know that for a
people
fact.
that don't.
I think it had to do
So-
with the insurance, so that someone calls for it.
So I'm not eligible,
Okay,
Okay.
and I have checked.
Thank you.
that was nice, Jason, thank you.
All right, Brian, do you have any changes in healthcare or anything? that-
Yeah, there were changes, but there was like, yeah, I can go through them real quick.
Yeah, just roughly.
There's like a net, kind of pretty much net zero impact
Oh,
though.
okay.
So because I went really conservative with our rates this year,
Yeah,
so property and casualty, I had an increase of 7%. It's gonna be an increase of 9%, so it actually went up. Healthcare, I had in there an increase of 6%. It's actually an increase of 5%, so that went down a little. But we're not talking, it's like 5,000, you know, townwide, so it's not like a big swing. Dental, I had an increase of 3%. It was a decrease of 5%. Again, dental's
not
not
too much.
not a lot of money, so that was like $2,000. And then work-related injury, I had at 0% level funded, and it went up 3%.
So net about 5 grand?
No, the net,
I said 0.
yeah, it's pretty much a net zero. Yeah.
All right.
But
We're still at 1843 for the mill rate, right?
Correct.
yeah, well, we had 8,000 in increases tonight. So it might go up a penny
Oh, okay.
All
to
right, well,
offset
that's gonna
that.
go up.
For now, until we decide what we want to do.
I hear from the schools.
Right.
Until I get to school too. So do we need a meeting on Monday, since we don't have anything with the school till Tuesday?
Could we change, well, no,
It's
the
already
school's not
accomplished.
gonna do anything on that Tuesday anyway.
Yeah, they will, I think they will. But
Really?
nonetheless, yeah, but.
Well, then maybe we shouldn't have that meeting Monday,
Well,
maybe
you
we
already
should have it
published it,
Wednesday or
so-
Thursday.
Yeah, I think the agenda's today.
It's not.
We have the meetings.
Well, you could cancel a meeting.
You could cancel.
You could cancel it and reschedule it after Tuesday. It could either be Wednesday or Thursday,
Because we could.
I mean, if that's okay with everybody.
No, Monday. I just did the agenda today for that. That
Oh,
was the last one.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's no
oh,
big deal.
and Monday is just budget, it's just budget.
Yeah.
Budget,
Yeah.
yeah, so we could cancel the meeting, see what happens Tuesday, and then deal with our budget, and have a meeting Wednesday or Thursday instead.
I won't be here.
Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, I'm going back.
Oh, so you won't be Wednesday or Thursday?
Next.
Can we do something the following Monday after council meeting?
I don't want to do it.
Your 16th council meeting is that heavy agenda.
So then let's have that meeting Wednesday or Thursday anyway. I know Sharon can't make it, but, you know, we're gonna be
Well,
coming.
you won't, yeah, but
we're
then you
gonna
won't be
be-
able to count my vote.
Yeah, but you still have
You're absolutely right,
opportunities.
Sarah. If you're not here, you can't.
You'll
vote.
still have more opportunities.
I have to wait till May.
But you're not voting officially anyway, you're getting
Right.
consent.
We're gonna be looking at our fund balance and any remaining, there wouldn't be any money left over from the budget, but anyway. But what we'll do is look at our fund balance and we'll look and see what Sharon did, and then we can have a better idea of how we can get the tax rate, assuming Sharon gets it lower, then how can we get it even lower? And I'm sure Sharon would be happy with that, because we're not gonna be taking away from anybody. We're looking at the fund balance. We're looking at revenue from solar and everything else, to see if there's any revenue increases there that will help us
Hello,
get
young
the
lady.
tax rate down.
Am I at the right meeting? I'm supposed to come at 8:30
For what now?
the town budget
For,
meeting, neighbors helping neighbors.
oh, neighbors helping. Guess what?
Jason,
You just got to get.
Jason, you just got a $1,000 donation from this man right behind you.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, we probably weren't going to fund it, but.
well, the municipal won't fund it, but we have a
Not a problem.
But he's,
I told him I'm willing to donate $1,000 to Neighbors Helping Neighbors as long as it's a resident in Hopkinton that you're helping.
Okay, we'll put that.
give him your card so he knows where to send the check.
He's got your
I
information.
got your information.
PO Box 406.
Yeah, I have all
Yeah. And who are you?
Jason Duff.
Jason.
The tech, there's so many.
Thank you so much. I'm
Anytime.
CJ.
All right, so we're not gonna have the budget meeting on
So
the
I
let's
took the trees down for that Mr. Garden stuff.
30 what?
I took the trees
So
down.
you
for
want
Mr.
to do
Garden.
Thursdays like we usually do?
That's the 10th.
Oh, is the town hall?
That's the 12th.
I don't have.
It's the 12th.
What's that, you said on here?
Yeah, we'd be on,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's in your, yeah, calendar there. You can-
So on the 15th, I'll send you off the check.
12th is conservation, please.
Okay.
Oh, police, that's police
So what happens
station.
is
Conservation
Jamestown,
Division.
Yeah,
Jamestown, I have,
yeah, good. Are you available
Bridge.
Thursday, and Thursday.
It said Monday, Scott.
Budget
Said
meeting
Monday
next
for last
Thursday.
All
Do you
this,
have a card?
I don't have a card.
When you
I
send
think I got
it,
something.
I'll send you a card.
Well,
yeah.
you gotta,
When is it?
you gotta do it.
It's a Thursday.
It's gotta be up to Sharon. It could be Wednesday if the town hall is.
Probate court, that's it. That's the one.
So what about Wednesday instead, Scott?
Sorry, you here?
Does that help you better?
That's it.
Next Wednesday, Thursday, 11th to 12th.
So, I think.
When is the 12th is,
Thursday.
Not a problem.
Conservation Commission meets here, but
No,
they're very amenable to.
I tell you what, we know you wanna meet.
What's it?
Shall I leave then? Are we all set?
Yes,
Yeah, well, sorry. You gotta get money in
We can't find you, so he's going to instead.
That's so wonderful.
And anyone at home, if you want to donate to Neighbors Helping Neighbors, it's P.O. Box 406, Charlestown, RI 02813, for anybody who wants to donate.
And they do
maybe
great work.
match the donation that just
Well,
came
what's your
in.
name?
My name is Susan Jakewood. I'm the president of the board.
Nice to meet you.
No.
Nice to meet you.
I was looking to help myself, but since I don't have homeowners insurance right now, that I would be eligible, so.
Yes, I know.
But thank you for coming. And
No, so he calls me.
You're welcome, and it is our privilege to serve your town. We really believe in what we do.
Oh, we all do.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Susan. Okay.
Okay.
Is it
Can I use it?
Is that the date?
Yeah.
Well, what we could do is because Scott's unsure whether
Okay,
11
let
or
me make a
12.
phone call.
All right, let me make the phone call.
Okay.
I'd like to get it.
Sure.
They have to give 48 hours notice.
Scott, we gotta give him
No.
some 48 hours.
No, he's 1 year in advance. He's 1 year in
It
advance.
might be Monday night, hold on. Well,
It'll be at 6:30, though, right?
Yes.
So you're saying the 12th is good?
what?
He's
Oh,
always
he's
trying
checking.
to-
Okay.
Phone is a lot.
I mean, it's all the messages I left you. Sounds like a slot machine.
So we're gonna cancel Monday and possibly move it to Thursday.
Does that work for you guys? You're the Wednesday?
Yeah, Thursday would, Wednesday.
Wednesdays, I mean Thursday's better.
Thursday would be better.
Thursday
You're
would be
babysit
better.
Wednesday, do you?
It's more notice.
Yeah, but
I'm
that's,
just kidding.
it's not more, I can move it around.
It's older, it's older. We know that.
I already emailed you guys.
Yeah, greetings from the Hopkinton Town Council. Budget workshop. When is the next meeting?
Is there any chance to see it?
Yeah, I worked on it, I
Don't
did.
even bother sending
I
it.
did. I gotta send
I
it.
will, I'll see you then. And I can't talk to you.
So we're going for the 12th.
Okay.
Monday
Oh,
works
no,
out better.
no, it's not.
No, we're not.
We change it to Thursday.
Right.
Okay.
Thursday the 12th.
Yes.
Well, it should be.
It's Thursday.
So you want to cancel that, Lisa?
Yes.
You take care.
Oh, so what are we doing?
Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday the
We're still
12th.
not going Thursday.
So you're gonna be gone very long? Sharon, not be gone very long?
Yeah, we're going Wednesday, Tuesday.
For a while or a week or
Just a
couple of days?
Yeah, drive back.
Take the meeting.
What kind of car do you have?
Mercedes, I have no guilt.
2006.
Okay, it's a big
We're good.
Yeah.
Oh, because of the